Welcome to Owning Your Personal Brand. I'm really excited that you have joined us today. We have a wonderful guest in Lizzie Newton who is here to talk about personal branding for marketing professionals. Lizzie, welcome and thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's get started, Lizzie, and I would love for you to share with the audience a little bit about yourself, not only what you're doing now, but also how you got started and what got you into marketing.
I love this because that's a little bit of what you do on a daily basis, which is kind of supporting small businesses. I took a long and windy path into marketing. I have a background in the art market and just design, content creation, and really doing that for different creative businesses. And then went back and got my MBA. And then after that, really just launched my own business. And within that, moved into marketing increasingly because I love that space, the creativity in that space, and really learned it from the lens of being a small business owner. And then now stepped into Walk West going on a little bit over 3 years and have really had the space to kind of build out branding and strategy there. And I'm excited to kind of continue to have that conversation.
Good, good. And we'll talk a little bit later, but you all have your own podcast where you're helping people determine if marketing is for them. So we'll definitely be sharing that a little bit later. But I want to hop in and talk about something that is a struggle for agencies a lot, but also marketing professionals. Why do you think that people who do marketing for others can't seem to market themselves? Like, why do you think that's such a challenge?
It is such a classic problem, I feel like. I feel like whenever you're in that space on a kind of a daily basis, where you're thinking about it all the time and you're passionate about it, it's really tough to hold that mirror up for
Mhm.
yourself, and to kind of think about it from the lens of what you would tell a client, because it is you and it feels kind of it is so deeply personal. And so I think we as marketers have to slow down sometimes and remind ourselves that some of the things that we're saying to our clients and advising our clients on, we need to actually take our own advice
Yeah.
and do ourselves. And that's hard. I mean, that's hard to do, but it's also hard to kind of recognize that you're not doing it. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of an ego knock, honestly. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think it's tough.
It is. And what do you think then are the benefits? So for people who at least once they recognize that, wait a minute, I'm giving all of this advice to my, clients and also to other marketers, what do you think the benefits are of taking that time to slow down and focus on personal branding?
And I think, I'll answer that from two different ways. I think what strikes me and why it's so important once you recognize that you have a problem that you need to kind of solve for your own branding is it is so much, especially with social these days, you are an extension of your company.
Yeah.
That is such, you have the opportunity to use that platform as a megaphone for something that's really important to you, and really center your own kind of brand on things like that. But it is important to recognize that there isn't that kind of separation between church and state in a way. That there is this, there with that opportunity comes the fact that you need to be aware of it being connected to your company,
Mhm.
and that it is reflected by that. The benefit of it, though, is that it's such an incredibly important tool for networking and for kind of not just building your career opportunities on a personal level, but building awareness for the company you work for,
Mhm.
or the things that are important to them. And so, and to you, and what that intersection is between them. So I think that piece is just really important to recognize that there are overlaps between them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what you said, the first part of what you said is so important. I learned that the hard way in small businesses that you are an
Yeah.
extension of your business. And in some cases, when it's actually your business, you're more than just an extension. People want to know you and they need to trust you before they'll actually even consider doing business with your company. If you are a
Mhm.
marketing professional working for a bigger firm, that might not be the case. But if you're on social and you're talking about things that are relevant to industry, important things that make you trustworthy, people would take a look at your company maybe just a little bit more serious or
Mhm.
dig into it a little bit more once they see that. So that part of being an extension of your company is definitely so important. And I would love to hear and love to have you share, when did you first recognize that personal branding was really important for a marketing professional? And what are some of the things that you did for your own brand?
Absolutely. Honestly, I struggle. I mean, I'm the perfect example of your first question, to be direct. I really just put it aside, and I think the more that I listen to myself talking to clients about their brands and the importance of the thought leadership that comes out, particularly on things like LinkedIn, um, the more I needed to take my own advice. And I think that really happened for me a couple years ago. And it was something that was intimidating because, it was because we live in the space of social, of marketing day to day. When it comes time to kind of step out of that space, like, you want to turn it off. You don't want to do more of it sometimes. But to kind of fold that into what you do. And I recognize that I needed to take that advice for myself. So for me, it was about one, that first step of recognizing that I wanted to do it and that it was important to do, and taking it more seriously than I think I've given it credit for. But then the second one was then figuring out what I wanted to say,
Mm,
and why I wanted to say it, And so for me, that was where everything kind of came together, taking just a moment to self reflect and identify the things that were important to me, important to me to speak out about or to share with others. And that gave me something that I was excited to do on my personal brand. And for me, that was really inclusive marketing. And it started with just, speaking to and sharing other people's thought leadership
mm,
before I started creating my own. And I think that is always the best place to start, is just looking at, what do you like to see on social? Who do you follow? And then why is that important to you? And how can you kind of think about that for yourself?
yeah. There are two things that you mentioned I want to come back to. The first is you said you were a little intimidated.
I
I
would.
want to talk about that for a minute because that's probably a very common thing. I think a lot of times when someone says personal branding, it sounds like self promotion, and it sounds like, why would I want to talk about
Yeah.
them? But talk a little bit about, how did you overcome that? Like, how did you leap over the fact that you were a little bit intimidated about building your own brand?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to point out that there are varying degrees of building your own brand.
Mhm,
That can look like someone like Gary Vaynerchuk or Oprah
mhm,
Winfrey that have really cultivated this entire kind of ecosystem of things.
mhm,
Or it can be where I felt comfortable, which was just kind of stepping into social and applying
mhm,
that to what you're speaking about. And I think that was what made it less intimidating for me, was recognizing that this didn't need to be or look a certain way, and letting go of that kind of perfection of what that could be, and making it just authentic, and recognizing and trusting that. I needed to get a little bit comfortable with being uncomfortable doing it.
yeah.
And the beauty of something and beginning in a place like social is that it is a platform that allows you to, I mean, it's got a short kind of memory in certain ways. And so you can kind of test different things, and that can evolve. And it's a really good learning place to find your voice and what that is. So, yeah, taking my own advice, and then recognizing that I could do it in little steps that felt more palatable and easier to manage.
I think that is so important. Couple of things. Starting where you're comfortable, not
Yeah.
feeling like you can view other people, like you said, Gary V, Oprah. You can see what they're doing, but it doesn't mean you have to do that. Like, taking little parts of maybe what other people do and then finding where that comfort is,
Yeah.
because it can be scary. But like you said, start where you are comfortable, and then you'll find yourself doing other things that you're not comfortable with
Yes.
because you started small. I think that part is really important. And then the other thing that you had mentioned was sharing other people's information. and having that be a starting point as well. I think that is such a big part of personal branding, is that it still shows that you have knowledge, you have expertise, because you're kind of combing through a ton of information
Yeah.
and then sharing with people what's most important and what you feel like they can learn from. So I feel like those were excellent, like excellent points. Um, let's see. The other thing I wanted to ask you is about leadership,
Mhm.
leadership and career growth. How do you think, or what do you think is the place that personal branding takes in leadership and career growth?
I mean, I think about it as a networking tool more than anything else. And I think, like any other networking tool, whether it's going to an event or, facilitating conversations, personal branding gives you a place to connect with someone. And I think that that is so important for career growth, for leadership, for just making those connections as you move forward in your career. And so to step into it with that kind of approach in mind, that it is a tool for you, and a tool for your career, or even just job seeking. I mean, it applies to so many different things, whether you're doing it on behalf of, building relationships for your small business, or, investment opportunities, or just kind of your own personal career growth. I just think people look at what your social is. They look at kind of what you're putting out there, whether it's blog writing that you're creating, or podcasting, or conversations that you're having, and what those topics are. And it just creates space for you to have a really natural and very human conversation with someone from that, about something that's important to you. And in a way that feels really authentic. So I
Mhm.
think, anytime you can do that, it's always going to be great for your career, and for your, just leadership, and growing into a space like that.
Yeah. Well, back to what you were saying about your own brand and you starting where you're comfortable at social, talk about the journey. What other things have you been able and been more comfortable to do with your brand?
Yeah, that's, I mean, I am admittedly very much more of an introvert when it comes to talking about myself. And so for me, it was stepping onto social, then was a platform to identify what was important to me. Like, what are the things that I want to share, and connect with other people in that same space. And so from that, it really evolved into things like this, where I can, have conversations, on podcasts, or I've done some blog writing, both for, Walk West, but then also for other places, and kind of, you know, white papers, that type of thing. And then also just speaking opportunities. I mean, I think because at that point it's coming from something that you feel really passionate about, again, it takes away that intimidation factor of, you know, it's not so overwhelming feeling. And again, it's very personal, and like, I get excited in that space. Like, I can talk all day. And so it becomes a lot more fun.
Yeah,
So that's,
also go ahead. Sorry.
no, 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 good.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's so relatable because I mean, I hearing you talk, I feel like, wow, that's kind of the same as what I've been going through. And it's really kind of like, why would people want to hear what I have to say, or why would people,
No,
want to see what I'm writing? But it's actually not even really about me as much as it's about the people like you that I can share with other
yes.
people, and the people or the expertise that I hear or I get from someone else that I can share. And once I realized it was more about sharing and
Yes.
helping and letting other people learn what I've learned, it did make it a lot easier, because it's not actually about me so much. It's really about what I can facilitate or what I can bring. And that was a huge turning point, like you said, of taking it from being something scary to something that's very manageable and doable.
100%. And I think, there's so much imposter syndrome that kind of chirps
Mhm,
at you when you're talking about things, or at least for me, with a personal brand. But
mhm,
to your point, it's about connection. It's
mhm.
about, being able to share and speak and learn from other people about something that you really enjoy and are passionate about. And in a weird way, it's not personal it's not about you anymore. It's about that kind of connection that you have, and opportunities and doors that opens. And for me, that was something that made it so much easier to think
Mhm.
about. so much more exciting, right? So
Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit about what you said is kind of your current focus and passion area, which is inclusive marketing. And
it is.
tell us a little bit about what that even means to you, and also what are some of the things you're doing to help people get more educated around that.
Yeah. So, and again, it was kind of an evolution, kind of self-reflecting, learning, and kind of just listening to what are the things that I'm seeking out and get excited about. And it started with kind of just general kind of multicultural marketing, and then has since evolved into a platform about inclusive marketing and just speaking about that and just learning about it, frankly. Inclusive marketing is really about building something with all of the people at the table, creating things that are created by people, not just for people, that you have diverse voices and perspectives and experiences in the room, and just create space for those, right? And so from the very beginning. And so I think for me, it has been so much about just kind of sharing what and why, frankly, it's important, but then consistently learning from others,
Yeah.
so that I can, continue to have and join more of a megaphone with people that are speaking to it. And so it's exciting and it's fun. And something that we do at Walk West and have kind of created process around to kind of formalize. I think, it started from the ground up. And then it's really just kind of sharing what my team is doing, sharing what my coworkers, and getting, again, it's not about me at that point,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
is truly what's exciting about it.
Good. We'll talk a little bit about, you have a blog that you've recently written about inclusive marketing. Tell people a little bit about that.
Yeah. So taking that platform of my kind of personal brand and something that I like to talk about, and then really kind of folding it into it's what we do at Walk West. And so that is that kind of Venn diagram of overlap between personal branding and kind of your company. And so wrote a blog just kind of explaining high level, like the difference between multicultural marketing and inclusive marketing and why it matters. Why are we talking about it? What does it mean? And just shared some of the work that like some of my teammates have done, to show case studies about it, and kind of that brought to life. So it was really neat because I get to brag on people, which is great, but also just kind of speak to something that I'm excited about.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Well, Lizzie, I appreciate you being with us today, and this has been wonderful. I think a few things to take away are that are really important. Start small. Start with where you're comfortable. Everybody, in my belief, has a brand, and
Mhm.
it's a matter of, do you own it? Do you actually manage it? Do you develop it or not? So it's not a question of whether you want one or not. It's really a question, you have one, what are you going to do with it? And I think the advice was really great to start small, start where you're comfortable, and then grow from there. And the other thing that I think is important is you don't have to be everywhere, and you can't be everyone to everybody. And
Yes.
so you can look at other people, see what they're doing, but it doesn't mean you have to do those 50 things. You could just pick one, whether it's social like Lizzie, or whatever is most comfortable to you. But definitely sharing the information that you know, that you learn with other people is a huge, huge step in building your brand. And so, Lizzie, where can people connect with you and talk to you more about personal branding or inclusive marketing?
Well, our favorite platform is LinkedIn. So I would love to, I'm happy to connect, reach out, talk. I don't know. It's so much fun to meet other people that are all
Mhm.
in this space, whether you're just stepping into it for the first time and want to just kind of talk a little bit about what to do, and how to kind of make that less intimidating, or it's about just sharing some of the things on your personal brand. It's always nice to have a conversation. So
I think that's one thing that's funny about introverts is people don't think that that's what we want to do, and it's absolutely what we want to do: meet new people, make connections, just not on a large scale, just like one
yeah,
person at a time, a couple people at a time. But it
right.
actually is very rewarding to meet new people and learn about their backgrounds and everything. So definitely, I'll say this probably every episode. Please take Lizzie up on that. So many times you hear people say, "Hey, connect with me, talk with me," and then people don't do it. And they're always like, "I can't ever get advice from somebody."
Yeah.
Definitely take advantage and reach out and ask questions if you have, or just follow her and see what she's posting. And then lastly, Lizzie, talk a little bit about Talk West and what you all are doing through that podcast.
Yeah, so Talk West is really being led by our senior account person, who is Derek Ross. And Derek does these incredible kind of conversations. A lot of us come from different backgrounds, myself included, kind of came into marketing in a way that wasn't just a communications or a business background, but from our own experiences. And honestly gives us such a different perspective and strength when we're talking to different businesses or clients. And so Derek really explores some of the stories behind that and how you got there, as well as does a lot of roundtables and kind of discussions about and with different leaders in the Raleigh-Durham area. And so inclusive marketing is something that we always kind of fold into it and kind of speak to in different ways. But I love it whenever Derek invites me to the table. But the conversations that are had are so invaluable. I mean, I think every time I listen to one, I learn something new, which is saying something because they are my coworkers a lot of times. So it's really, really neat to hear the storytelling.
Good. And you can check that out, walkwest.com
Mhm.
slash talkwest, correct? Talk
Correct.
dash west, I should
Talk.
say. So good. Well, again, thank you for being here and sharing your experience and your insights on personal branding for marketing professionals. I want to thank everybody for listening on this episode. Again, I believe strongly everybody has a personal brand. It is up to you to own it, develop it, and manage it. And we hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we will be back with another great guest next week. Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.